Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis volume 85. Again, we're going to give you a look of the market's insights for this week and also compare our analysis from last week as well. So I am going to go through a run through of all the pairs for today. So yeah, we'll start off with gold as our first pair. So what we were talking about last week were two possibilities, and I was in two states of mind. Essentially, I was in this possibility, if price was to go up, we could look at something like this condition. But what we saw throughout last week was just this ultimate consolidation and sideways moving market. So for me, I think there is a still possibility of two scenarios happening where we could get price to push up higher. But for me, what I think I want to be looking into is to see if price can make a sell-off opportunity. So what we could expect is for price to make one more little push up before it then descends to the downside. So I'm going to be looking out for some selling conditions, but if we don't get any selling conditions, this then should break up higher. And if so, again, we just have to wait for this retest, which would most likely have to take place in the following week. So don't worry if you are looking at a sell bias and then it just goes wrong and then we see a push through. All we have to do is just pretty much wait for a retest, which obviously takes a little bit more time. So again, if that buying scenario does happen, we just have to stay patient. But for now, I'm keen to see if we can see price to push lower. So I still think it's about 50-50 right now. So I'm just keeping that perspective in my mind just in case. So yeah, so just keep an eye on price action on this one, and we'll see what what's going to come out through this week. So yeah, let's move on to now Euro USD. So what I'm looking at for this this week is pretty much, as we can see, prices sold off to the downside. So we've pretty much hit all our targets now. So 1.17. I did mention before about 1.16 being the possibility of a turnaround, so it could drop lower. But ultimately, what we're doing is we're trying to find if price can make this one big rally up towards the upside, and if so, we could be potentially aiming for 1.23. But again, this is very long term, as I think I've mentioned last week. But clearing or thinking about this week, what we could expect, it really just depends if we can create some stronger structures. So what we could have is price make a move up and then it continues to drop lower into 1.16. So I'll keep that as a scenario. Let me just push this to the side a little. The other scenario is that this is going to be the low, so then we could get price to rally up and then we could wait for some sort of retest and then watch this fly up, I guess. So again, we have two scenarios here. Again, pretty much either way, it doesn't really matter what's going to happen because we will always capture the long run after the retest. So if price wants to push lower, then we could potentially look for selling opportunities into 1.16. But if we start to see strong bullish pressure in the market, all we have to do is just wait for a retest simply, and I'll be looking for that move here to get an entry. And if so, we could hopefully see price continue to break more structures into 1.2, even into 1.22 and then 1.23. So again, it really just depends what price action wants to do. But I think there is a possibility that we could go into 1.16 as a hunch. Excuse me, it really just depends again what price wants to do. So yeah, we'll keep an eye out for this pair. So moving on to NZDUSD. Let me just check my notes real quickly. So what I've spoke about last week was a potential turnaround opportunity. I personally was expecting price to make one more push up higher before turnaround, but as we can see that I think the second scenario that this ended up being the final drop off, so that was clear, it's quite clear through price action here, so I didn't bother taking an entry, so we missed this one. So we're now probably just going to have to wait for some form of retest. But whilst we talk, so whilst we've seen this play out nicely now, we might as well discuss what's up ahead and what I'm thinking. So as I was looking for price to clear this area into 0.68 or 0.685, I think that this has this possibility of price turning up in a similar fashion towards EURUSD, and we could be aiming for 0.73 and potentially to go a lot higher than that. So this is pretty much the new long-term trend that I'm following, or I'm anticipating. So we just simply have to wait for price action just to flush out any more sellers in the market. So this could mean a long retracement, so a lot of sideways moving market. So this could be very choppy over the next few weeks or so, or it could be just a simple little up move, a little retracement, and then a little push down more. So again, although this looks like a small move, again, this could be a few, good under 100 pips. So for me, that's perfect. Don't look for anything more than 100 pips or so. So we can squeeze out some moves here if potential. And we could even look at a counter trend trade if we really wanted to. But again, it's kind of a bit more risk, so because again you're going against the trend, so there is that possibility of price continuing to drop lower than you'd think. So again, I don't really recommend it, but if you can get in, then you can capture this swing towards the upside, possibly into 0.69. We'll see how it reacts at that level, but again, this scenario that I'm painting out here is one option. But ultimately we're trying to see if price can really start to push up higher. So I think I'm pretty happy with this. It has been quite bearish last week, so we've had that huge drop off. Let me pull this down. So we had that huge drop off in the market, so I am expecting some sort of recovery from that. So yeah, we'll see what is up for grabs for this week. AUDUSD, so similar fashion, I am looking for the more of a continuation. So we spoke about last week was a scenario where price was capable of pushing up. I think I was more favored on that side. So this scenario didn't end up happening, but the second one did, and price ended up, this being the lower high. Yeah, this now being the turnaround at this point. So as we can see, we had this huge drop off in the market. So for me, what I possibly will be looking at for now is to see if we can find some potential recovery. So we might have price recover to the upside, potentially into 0.72, and make one final push lower, depending on how far this pushes. That could be your opportunity. But again, like NZDUSD and EURUSD, I am looking for price to make new highs again. So this again is really about just being really patient with this pair, again with all USD pairs, actually the pairs that I've covered so far, and try not to rush this, because this is where if you get it right, you could be looking at some very good long-term positions, nearly. So yeah, so that's, again, we're all coming over to now this new shift in the market in terms of the trend. So as we see now on this final month, maybe it's the final month, maybe when we get into September we'll start to see this massive rally, who knows. But yeah, again, eventually what I'm looking for here is for price to potentially make a recovery and flush out any more sellers before we start to look for those long-term buyers. So again, that's pretty much where we stand for that pair. So for USDJPY, again, what we were looking at for last week was pretty much price to make its way towards the upside. It slowly did this, so I'm quite confident. I'm happy with the analysis and this bias for now, so I will just move this along sideways. So roughly what I'm thinking here is price to potentially come into 111. So we may have price mess around here, so whether price breaks lower and then rallies up. So again, that could be a scenario. Let me drop that in. Let me just move this sideways real quickly. So something as simple like this, where price makes a drop lower and then rallies up. Let me again move this to the side. But yeah, you can understand what I'm trying to say. But essentially, you know, for this week, I'm looking for basically longs into the market, into 111. And again, I think that is a good few hundred. Well, maybe if price does break it to the low, that's 200, and then again from here it should be just around 100. So not too bad of a profit, but again, it really just depends what price wants to do. And yeah, so might as well speak about it just in case this happens this week. But if we start to see price break 111 with strength and force, again, this will be a complete bullish scenario, and we'll have to come back and create some come back to you guys with some new analysis, because this has completely gone against our sell bias. So again, what we're looking to target is pretty much this. You know, we want to buy here into 111 and then potentially sell it into 108. So again, it's a long way down, but yeah, it really just depends what's to unfold. But again, if price really does have that strength, you know, it's going to take a lot for price action to do this. So a good 200 pips, but I don't see that happening just yet. I think price is going to have some struggle around the 1111. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that one. So for CADJPY, what we anticipated last week was this sell-off opportunity. We can see that it's nicely played out, very strong towards the downside. So what we could be now looking for is the next shift, and that is long-term pushing up higher to break this high at 91. Again, this is a very long way, so it really doesn't matter if you miss the bottom, because there's always going to be stops along the way that we can get in. So again, when I mean this arrow is going to be strong, straight up, I don't mean it's going to be one, 4-hour candle, let's say. This is going to take time to develop, right? So again, following our videos, it's good to see how price action plays out. Excuse me. And yeah, you can see how we think and how we trade on a week-to-week basis. And coming back to the channel, you can see how price action is unfolding. So with that being said, with this week, what we could see is a potential recovery towards the upside, and just maybe we could have one more push towards the downside. So again, it could be squeezing out any more sellers, and seeing if we can get that continuation towards the downside still. So yeah, still a good 100 pips or so. We could even look at 84.5 or even 84 flat. But ideally, what I'm looking for is those longs towards the upside. So again, this is 50-50, but again, the scenario that we could, the second scenario, and if it's a buy, is if we start to see price, break 85, 86. Sorry, 86, 87, and if we do, we could look at a continuation play. So yeah, again, I'm not trying to make this too difficult to understand, but again, following on this new bias, I'm going to be a bit more bullish on this if we start to see that correct price action. So it's very key to not just jump in on our bias. It's, we have to wait for price to, pretty much do its thing. So let's take a look into EURJPY. So what we were explaining last week was a scenario where price was able to potentially rally up higher and then make this bias towards the downside. So again, I was personally anticipating price to make a move towards the downside in the long run. But obviously, as we can see, price completely shattered 129, broke into 128 even. So now we're at this point of the market. We can now discuss again this next phase of the market, because I think what we explained last week was this ultimate bias towards the downside. So now that we've come into essentially 128.5, this long-term bias, again with pretty much all of the pairs that we discussed so far, is I'm looking for price to make this new shift towards the upside. So I think we've not even drawn this in, but around 134, so this gray zone here, we've got all this price action to cover up to there. So very long way to go here. So good 600 pips. So again, getting very excited for the August phase and the September phase, entering September. Again, Q3, this will be a great point. Yeah, so again, we're entering into Q4, I guess, but yeah, we'll see what exactly happens. But again, what I'm noticing so far, and hopefully you guys can see this too, is that we're pretty much seeing a new shift into the market in terms of the long-term trend. So we can just do our best now to pretty much see if we can capture these moves now and see if we can get in on these new long-term trends. Okay, so with that being said, what we're going to be looking at for this week is to see if we're going to either get one more push towards the downside and then that push up, or if we get to see price now making this bullish pressure up. So if so, then we're just going to have to wait for that retest. So again, patience is key, like always. I never rush my trades, so I'm very particular about how I enter, and as I recommend you guys to be doing the same. So don't take my advice blindly. Make sure you have your own trading plan and stick to it. But the best tip that I could give you guys is pretty much the price action, and just pretty much watching how it unfolds, I guess. So yeah, we're pretty much waiting for some bullish pressure to come in, but again, we could be anticipating price to, you know, push lower just to flush out any more early buyers. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much where I stand with this. So I'm looking into NZDJPY. Let me take a look at my notes real quick. So so what we spoke about last week was, I think I was looking for price to make one more high. I don't think we looked at taking a second scenario, but pretty much it literally dropped off. Let me see 1 second. So yeah, I think we pretty much was expecting price to push up higher, and yeah, pretty much we saw that. So we had price drop off from 80, so from 78. So what we can see now that we've had that target met, you know, had that huge push towards the downside, which was great to see. We're pretty much now just waiting for this new shift again with this pair. I know I keep talking about shifts, but again, can't stress this enough. This is going to be a very good it's a very good time for any long-term traders in the market. Again, we're going to be possibly looking into 80. So again, this is a very long way. But again, this is the long-term shift that we're looking for. So whether the price wants to reverse here, or if it wants to push up a little higher and then continue to push lower, you know, that's what I'm being essentially mindful of. As we're coming into September, that could be a new thing, and also it would make sense that September's shift could be the start of the new, you know, the new wave, or the new trend in the market. So again, that's what I'm being mindful of. But yeah, what we could see through in this week though is potential shifts towards the downside. We could get a retest that we could take part of and squeeze out some pips as much as we can. But again, just be mindful that we could expect some bullish pressure coming in. So yeah, let's keep an eye out for that. So looking at our last three pairs, and that's AUDJPY. So what we were expecting through last week was, I think we was going for more of the second scenario, where we were expecting price to drop off and we were waiting for a recovery. So this first scenario didn't happen. We broke out of this sideways consolidation, major drop off here, and what my annotation is well, what we was explaining is we're just waiting for this retest. So with that being said, we could expect price to push up just a little higher, potentially flush out once more towards the downside to again take more sellers, and then pretty much we're going to be going for the same thing again, which is looking for price to potentially head into the 86 barrier of the market. So again, this is all the way up here, So again, like I said before, this is not again, this is not going to happen overnight. This one big move, this will take a lot of time. So again, if you do miss the bottom, it is totally fine. We can get multiple entries along the way, and that's the beauty of you know, being able to scale in your trades. And obviously it takes time, but again, the FOMO does increase as we get to these big turning points, you know. So just stay patient with this, and don't rush it, because there's always going to be another opportunity in my eyes. Okay, so moving on to the last two pairs, USDCHF. So what I've got drawn here, so I've got two things I wanted to explain. So what we could see is price possibly making one more downfall before pushing higher into 93. The other scenario that we possibly could see is just price rallying into 93. So, you know, we may have missed this low. There may be some sort of way price could just push a bit lower and then rally up. But again, it really just depends what price wants to do. And there's two possibilities. So price could drop lower and then make its new rally, or we'll get to see, or price will just make a little drop off here and then completely push up. But in my opinion, I'm mostly edging towards I'm leaning more towards this scenario here for now, again just based on my first assumptions. But again, this can all change overnight, especially when the new data or when the market opens literally in 5 minutes. But again, tomorrow morning we can do that assessment. But yeah, let's just pretty much stay vigilant on this, and yeah, some good opportunities there still. So yeah, looking at USD CAD. So for this, I wasn't actually particularly expecting price to rally up so quickly. I was actually expecting this scenario here, so price to make one more push lower before pushing up high, but that's not a problem. I think we could still actually push lower now, and I think this scenario ended up happening. So what I'm possibly looking into is to see if price wants to recover this move. So what I'm looking for is pretty much just some sort of you know, retracement on this entire move. So, you know, we could be looking at the 618 maybe as a little target, you know, as we could say, as a little mindful target. I'm not saying it's going to reject here and then completely rally off, but you know, we can look at price coming into around the 618, and with USD CAD you can get a lot of pips out of some moves here. So what I'm personally just going to be looking at then is some selling opportunities. So whether price does turn around here, or if price continues to push up higher, again just be mindful that can happen. So don't immediately take a sell bias, for example, without waiting for price action, because that is a part, an important part of the process of taking some trades here. So but yeah, I think this is due some sort of push lower, especially as we've had a very aggressive push high, as price action has been very bullish over the last few days or so. So I think we do need some strength towards the downside. So we could be seeing a lot of profit taking soon, possibly at 1.3. maybe we're seeing some rejection at 1.29 already. So yeah, let's see. So we do have some overbought conditions on the RSI. There's no divergence yet, so that could indicate that we could be pushing up higher and then rolling over. But again, if that does happen, then we could be looking at this occurring over the next 2 weeks or so, which could actually make sense why on the other USD pairs they were making push higher after. So what we could then possibly see this week is price you know, we could be looking at a buying opportunity on the short-term scale, and then maybe looking for the sales on the upside after we break in this high, maybe into 1.3 as well. So again, just putting some scenarios out there. This is the purpose of this channel, just to give you some clarity of what I'm thinking, and again, make sure you're using your own trading plan and not over risking your trades, because that's usually the way people blow their accounts. Okay guys, I can't stress that enough. But yeah, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, I do appreciate your time for listening. Again, if you have any other comments, or if you have any other questions, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you would like to join any of our memberships, get in contact with our Instagram or our Telegram. And yeah, so thank you very much for listening guys, and we'll see you all in our next video.